Welcome back to the Hair Curler Chronicles. Tim and Nancy Ganter coming to you from our kitchen in Kitchener-Waterloo. And we're here again today with our really good friend, Lisa Blackwell, registered dietitian. And so happy to have you back again, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us for another session of the Hair Curler Chronicles, where we're going to dive into money saving and time saving initiatives for our viewers who are trying to figure out how to create and some more time in their life and create some spare change so they can put in some investing. So welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's been a sunny day. First day of spring, eh?
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's nice to finally get some sunshine. Wanted to jump off from our conversation last time where we were talking about, we delved into when you're looking in the kitchen for cost savings, that it's not just cost savings we're looking at, but time savings and maybe some mental health savings when it comes to all this. And so we focused a lot in our last conversation on some tips and tricks that you could do when you're doing it at the grocery store, but maybe we could switch over to, for us, a lot of what we want to look at or what we need to do is time saving ideas and meals in a minute. And how do I do that and not blow the bank on money at the same time?
So some of these are going to cross over from last time tip wise and into this time as well. And that first one that comes to mind right away is the meal planning with relation to time. But if I can take a second to jump back to the grocery store.
Yep.
Getting in and out of the grocery store also can be and should be probably a time savings thing. And so what I usually suggest for that is preparing before you go. That starts with your list. But the other part is when you get there, after you know what your meals are going to be, because you've done a bit of meal planning, that's going to save you when you're in the aisles. And the other thing that I bring up for people, and it's cost and time savings, is when you're filling up your items and you're putting them in the cart, is to consider where you're putting things together. So it drives me crazy that we pick up an item from a shelf. It then goes in our cart. It goes from the cart onto the checkout aisle. It goes from the checkout aisle into the bag. It goes from the bag. So that process drives me crazy because I think for many reasons you understand. But what I try to do when I shop is even putting the items from wherever on the shelf or in the freezer section, I put all of my refrigerated and freezer items kind of grouped together in the cart. And so I don't know if people logically do that all the time because that wasn't something I used to do. And my rationale is because I want to get in and out of there and I want to get home and get it unloaded in timely fashion, is if you keep your refrigerated items together, then you bag them together. And so when you get home, the first thing you should be dumping out and putting away is your refrigerated items. So that's kind of a tip that I find is helpful for time in the long run and that people just don't consciously think about. So keep them together in the cart, put them on the aisle together, and then bag them together and put them away together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's funny you use that example because I say that all the time. I have to get it off the cart to put it into here and then the here into here and then on here. And I said, it's just me loading and unloading stuff all the time. So yes, I get that. I did group things like I put my fresh vegetables and fruit together and I always put my raw meat together. And I always have my raw meat bagged separately from the fruits and veg because I get that from working in restaurants is that you don't want to by any chance have something bleed out that you didn't, but through no fault of it own, it should go in a separate bag and it shouldn't be anywhere near something that could be cross-contaminated. But I didn't think about the freezer stuff and having it in one bag. That's a good time saving tip.
Yeah. Like yesterday we had frozen waffles. So I put that together with, the sectioned it off with all the refrigerated items. There's dairy products, whether it's milk, whether you have yogurt, cottage cheese, just put hummus, like any dips, put all of that together because then that way, when you get that bag home, it's the first one that you unload.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you bag? What are you looking at? Like that? I've been quiet long enough, and all the comments say he never says anything. So all the fruits and vegetables that are not packaged in the fresh fruit department, do you suggest putting them in plastic bags that are provided or not?
It's a tough one now with the pandemic, Tim. So that's a really good question. I have my own little, mesh black bags, and I love them. I find right now in the pandemic, I'm not using them. So I'm using plastic right now. And then when I'm getting home, we have an area where they'll recycle and take those. So I just keep all the plastics together. So that's another thing when I think about what I display and tape for myself when I'm doing the videos for meals and cooking and preparing. And one of the things I say on your own cooking flow is get yourself a compost bag, put that on your counter, get yourself access to recycling and to plastic bags or whatever. So at least if you're gonna use plastic bags, when you're doing the meal, you're putting them all together and they can hopefully get maybe recycled or it can get sent off together. It's kind of not my ideal because before that we were doing bags and bins and bringing your own. But with the pandemic, I don't know, it's just been a bit of a hit and miss. I think I'm not at the comfort level yet to go back to my mesh bags. But it will definitely be my go-to shortly.
Tim bags everything. I'm less bagging everything because I'm thinking, well, it's all sitting out there anyway. So why would I bag it to then bag it again? But I do have.
We do reuse those. So what
those
we
plastic
do,
bags.
we do reuse those plastic bags for the next shop to put the meat in.
Like I take all those plastic bags and I put them
We
in
save
my
them from
in
this
my-
from this week's shop. Next week we'll use that to put the ground beef in at the store, so it's more contained.
So we're not using another bag.
Yeah.
We're just saying, anyways. So
And that's where I'm saying I find it's tough to figure out your comfort level right now because of the pandemic. For a while, we weren't even allowed to bring our bags in, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm like, so anything that I bring out of the store, there's always the thought of the possibility of what is it brought with it or what am I bringing back to reuse it? So again, I don't think we're out of the clear, but is there a chance? Is it microscopically a certain percentage? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a tough call, but I like that question because I could tell you in a world where I'm not concerned about the pandemic, I would definitely be. I have bags, I have bins, I have, freezer or container bags with filters in them and stuff. And I'm using those and I'm using my mesh bags for produce. And I can tell you, I'll tell you this funny thing. My mother-in-law has approached people who decide to put their bananas in bags because she feels it's a waste of plastic because the banana's are peeling. Nobody eats the peeling. Why would you waste a bag for your bananas? So I think it's good for us to have the forethought of maybe when you're deciding, what is it you're doing with that food? So if I take for granted maybe a lime or a lemon, I'm going to maybe be using that on a drink in my glass with liquid. I don't want that rolling on the aisle and the checkout. And I don't know, even if I wash it, there's more touch points.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put my limes and lemons in a plastic, even if it seems a little bit repetitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. So, okay. So for Tim and I, we were pretty blunt on our previous call that we bleed money when it comes to food. I think we've gotten better over the years about it, but there isn't a single week that doesn't go by that I don't throw something out that I've bought or I haven't used or whatever. And so I guess maybe a couple of ideas or suggestions, because we can't be the only ones that are throwing food out. Like we just can't be. And do you have any kind of comments or suggestions for stuff like that?
Yeah. And it comes down to a segment that I did on refrigerator clear out and clean out and how to stock and properly know how to lay out your fridge. So I can't know for sure what everybody's doing for me because that's how I function. There's an organized kind of pattern in my fridge. And when it comes to food that I know needs to be seen so that it doesn't get forgotten, I always suggest putting it either right at kind of eye level in something clear. And specifically, if you know you're going to use it or you think you've planned it out to be used, then before you put it in the fridge, maybe wash it up and get it ready to go.
Yeah.
So let's say you got lettuce, if it's romaine or something, I would actually tend to take apart the leaves, wash them and paper towel dry them and leave the paper towel in the clear container I put them in the fridge. Could be a container, could be a clear bag. The thing is, I haven't chopped it into tiny pieces where they're going to rust and go brown, but at least the leaves are ready. And it's also, not only is that going to make sure it hopefully lasts longer, it's ready to go. And then it takes 2 seconds to chop it if you decide you want it for salad.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I know, and even I've been guilty for this, You got the whole ball or strand of romaine lettuce there. And you're like, I'd like a salad, but it's a lot of work. Okay, I'll skip the salad today. So whatever you can do that could kind of partly prepare things, that is one of my suggestions on your way back from grocery shopping, is before you throw everything into the fridge, do you have something that you can kind of clear off and get it ready for its next use?
Yeah, so do you cut up onions and things like that in advance too, or?
You got to watch some of my videos, Nance.
I have. That's why I said. That's why I asked the question.
So my real go-to for that is, I can't tell you how many times, and I'm a foodie and I love cooking. And if I have to do a lot of chopping and stuff, I may just change my idea of what I'm cooking. So I always have onions and garlic chopped ahead of time and in the freezer. And so the garlic way, way better taste-wise than if you buy it in the oil in the jar. It loses its flavor. I find it hardly has any taste at all, to be honest, if you like a real garlic flavor. So I'll take a day or maybe an extra half hour when I'm cooking, and I'll decide I'm going to chop down an extra 2 or 3 onions, get them ready to go, and they go right in the freezer. And I'll do the same with garlic. And then all of a sudden, if you decide you want a quick meal, so you're talking about saving time for quick meals, if you've got a meat and then you just need onions and garlic to go with it, toss it together, maybe have some wraps, throw it in your meat portion into the wraps and add whatever veggies you have on hand. That's a quick, inexpensive dinner that saves you from dialing takeout.
Yeah, no, that's a really good suggestion. And is there any other vegetables that can hold up in the freezer like that?
So I also stick in there fresh ginger. Yeah. Because I find whether you're using it, and it's interesting because with fresh ginger, you could actually peel the whole thing, slice it into coins, and actually use it for tea. Some people would do that. But the alternative to that, which I find I do, is occasionally I'll like it in some form of a really kind of mild, kind of Asian flavored meal. And fresh ginger, to me, there's no comparable. So I'll save the whole bulb or the finger piece with the skin on and just wrap it and put it in the freezer. And it's really simple to just, again, shave off the outside and just grate it when you need it. Yeah. So ginger's another one, onions, garlic. Those are my 3 go-tos. I have one more tip that's actually, it's a freezer tip. And that would be for tomato paste. If you're a tomato paste person and you get them in the little cans, which are really inexpensive. Yeah. When I take the portion I've used, I actually get out an ice cube tray and just pop and fill the ice cube trays and then pop that into another container or Ziploc after. So then when I'm doing a recipe, again, I don't have to think, do I have tomato paste in the cupboard? I don't have to think, oh, I got to waste this. I just grab 2 ice cubes and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, no, I love that. And do you do meal prep on like a Sunday or something where you'll do a few things in advance, like beyond just making sheets and sheets of lasagna, but like you'll do something like I'm making soup for dinner tonight, so I'm going to make double batch. Like, are you double batching things and putting that in the freezer?
I am not double batching. I would say that I pick a day, but my schedule is a little bit more flexible than somebody working full time 5 days a week. If you're somebody, and I've got a couple girlfriends who do this, where they take a Saturday or Sunday and they'll make a couple meals for the week, and then they just portion it out. You leave enough for that meal, and then you might set 2 more meals left over for the next week. They usually, but it's also, a lot of people find it helpful if you like, let's say, whole grains. So maybe you'll make up a big batch of whether it's brown rice or something, usually takes you a good 45 minutes to cook. And that'll stay in the fridge for the week, and you can freeze it. It actually freezes well also. So if you do that ahead of time, that doesn't stop you from enjoying that during the week when you may not have as much free time.
Yeah, no, it's all of these time saving things are really, really super helpful. The other thing, and again, it's going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's a cost savings, money saving thing. I didn't know this till I started selling food, that when you look at fruits and vegetables, that you shouldn't store certain fruits and vegetables together because they turn fast. And so like, for instance, I think it's apples that give off
ethylene gases. Yeah. Yeah.
So put them near your bananas. Your bananas should be kept across the room from your apples. I had no idea. Yes.
Yeah.
You should not have your bananas near your apples. And what do most people do? They come home and they put their apples in a fruit bowl, and they put bananas right on top of it. And then they wonder why their bananas go bad so fast.
Because they couldn't play nice in the fruit bowl together.
No, it's a thing. It's a thing. And it's like, and it's understanding and knowing, I think, what vegetables go where in the fridge, that so you're not throwing it out. Like, for instance, you'd never put a potato in the fridge. Like people who own chip wagons, like the fresh cut French fries, they actually buy, there's a restaurant tip. They'll buy, if they know they're going to make X number of pounds of French fries next week, they will buy that this week, and they will, or 2 weeks for now, and they'll have it sitting out. They're waiting for it to because it has to do with the sugars in there, right?
Yeah.
So any tips or tricks on that kind of a thing? Do you know off the top of your head, other than the banana apple thing?
I would leave you that link that I mentioned to you on that dietitian's website, because they're pretty good. I know for me, my avocados are one of those finicky ones where I find they're green, they're hard as a rock, and all of a sudden they're like dark and they're done. So I keep them kind of separate. I usually try to buy them a little bit more firm, and then I keep them separate in a dish on their own to come just to room temperature ripe. And then once they're that way, then I throw them in the fridge. But it's that fine line. They're almost like bananas. They kind of are hard one day, and the next day they're all ripe at the same time. Yeah. So I guess a suggestion or a tip for that one would be, if you can, or if you want to, is when you buy them, is to buy, like, split your bundle, or buy, 3 avocados where one is like really hard and firm, and then the other one, there's one or two is maybe slightly ripe, so that you can use them up. The same thing with pears. If you buy them all kind of ready to go ripe, we know what's going to happen. Unless you have a planned dish that uses them all at the same time, you're going to be having food waste, right?
Yeah, I know. Food waste. I'm telling you, this is what it is. That's the food waste.
So that's a good point too, is that when you're talking about food waste, sometimes you go into the fresh area where the vegetables and stuff are, and there's a deal. And it's like 3 avocados for $6 or something like that. But you only need one.
Yeah.
But someone could gravitate towards, oh my God, it's a deal. And that deal sticks in their head. And yet they use one, they throw out the other 2. But really, it would have been cheaper to just buy the one, right?
Yes. However, I'm going to add to that, because what I'm doing myself, even though, like, I'm sure, Nancy, you're the same because you love cooking. There's a lot of things that you can probably go to off the top of your mind. For me, I'm trying to also create kind of like a favorites or a family favorites list of go-tos. So what I'm referring to is, if I see the avocados are on for a good price, or they look good, or there's a reason why I want to buy more than I think I need, then I've got either 2 or 3 items that I know I could do with it. So a quick guacamole, or lately I found there's a new recipe I've got to try out. This one sounds good. It's an avocado, and I think it's chocolate. It's a chocolate mousse and pudding with avocado in it.
Yeah.
So, and then in that case, probably a more spent vegetable is even better than when it's not ripe. So I think it's being very savvy, and being like, having maybe a list that you have, or a place you can go to online or whatever, that has those items you can make, so you can refer to it. So like I said, if I have my listing knowing I could do a guacamole or a pudding, then I know if those are going to get spent, I'm not throwing it out. Yeah. I'm using it up. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, yes. Yesterday, again, grocery shopping, and I went to the peppers, and they were like full price, as expensive as they could be. They looked beautiful, but I didn't want to pay that price. So I went around the corner, and at the grocery store I go to, they've got the stands with reduced items. Mm-hmm. I bought a pack of 4 peppers for $4 that would have probably cost me like 10, right? And these are 4 really nice peppers. Now, I don't need 4, but I know that I will now make an effort to, just as simply as maybe chop them all up, throw in some red onion, and just saute them in a pan. And then you can use that with a meal as a side. You can throw it into an omelet. So that's why I think it's valuable to have kind of a go-to list of your favorites, so you can try to avoid the food waste. With the items, you've got your favorite, maybe fruit or vegetables that you like to use, or that are usually on sale in bulk, right?
Well, and I think when we talk about this too, one of the things I got good at when the kids were little, we had you have a son around the same age as my son. It was like he had a hollow leg. So what I did was okay, I could not keep that kid full. So if I was making something with hamburger, I didn't want to have to buy four packages of hamburger just to feed him. So I got good at going to the sale items on the peppers and the things like that. And as long as I chopped it up fine enough that he didn't realize it was in there, it was like, okay, how far could I stretch that package of ground beef so that it could make a whole pile of stuff? Because that's another thing that's in here, is that keeping people feeling full on good foods, not just filling up on the filler stuff.
And that's where the importance of adding in the fruits and vegetables is, because you're getting the extra fiber, which holds you over. They call it satiety, or being satiated, where you're not feeling starving and hungry. So add in some protein, add in your fiber, whether it's from fruits, vegetables, or maybe some whole grains instead of the refined stuff. Yeah. That's going to hold you over longer. And just to add on with that, Nancy, is you mentioned about kind of doing that batch of cooking. When we're talking about avoiding the food waste, I mean, some of this is a general knowledge. Go to the stews, the soups, the whatevers. If you've got picky eaters, which I know we all do, whether they're kids, whether they're maybe husbands. And so take your vegetables. And I've been told if I put it into any of a form of a pureed form or a soup, that it's unidentifiable, it will be consumed.
Yeah.
So you got to get creative on it, right?
Yeah, our son Wesley told me he hates mushrooms. I hate mushrooms. I don't ever eat mushrooms. I'm thinking, you grew up on mushrooms. You could chop mushrooms. They're cheap, and you could chop mushrooms up so finely that it looks like it's a piece of ground beef. He had no idea.
Exactly. And so even with, I'm thinking of, like, yesterday I did a recipe where I only needed half of what I was using in a canned form. So I was using canned lentils. And this is back to cost savings and time savings again, right? So if you're using or needing beans, lentils, or something like that in your recipe, if you want to do cost savings, you want to do maybe considering dried, right? You're going to pay a lot more for a canned version of it. And then if you do get the canned version, don't waste any of that if you only need part of it. So it's, again, having an idea of what to do with it after. And that's where the creativity comes in. And that's where hopefully I can provide you or your actual viewers some information as well, is with my lentils, believe it or not, I actually do a puree with them, add in a bit of hot water, and those go into a carrot muffin I make.
Oh,
so, and they're delicious. And nobody would know they're in there. It's providing you more protein, so it's going to sustain you longer. And we know that our beans, lentils, chickpeas, all of those have got great different micronutrients in them, all those minerals and vitamins that you're not getting elsewhere. So
that's interesting you say that. I mean, I'm a guy and you
are? You're a guy. You don't.
So, I didn't stop to think about, go back to your lentils, that you can buy them in the can or you can buy them in the package. And you said there's a cost difference. I don't kind of look at the cost. I really don't. Nancy says, pick it up. I pick it up, and whatever the case is. Does that apply is there any connection between a cost savings between like a can of something or a package of something versus fresh fruit? Is there a cost, or fresh fruit and vegetables? Is there cost savings or anything like that there? Like, obviously if it's canned, it's more.
Absolutely. And you're getting a lot less. So if you think about, and again, this comes with a bit of knowledge, making sure that either you hook up to the right cooking site, the right recipe site. So if you think about those lentils, all those things I was talking about, if you go online to a website, which I can provide if you want to, about pulses, it tells you what to do with the different kinds of beans, lentils, chickpeas. Because I think when we don't know what to do with things, it can kind of scare us off and put us off, never mind the fact that we may not even know if we like the taste of it. So if you learn what to do with them, for instance, with the beans, if you're cooking and need like a can and you don't know how to do anything else with them, you're going to pick up the can. But I know for a fact with red lentils, if you use your split red lentils, they're a really good substitute for canned lentils. I can buy a bag for like literally a quarter of the price I'm going to pay for the can. They're dried, so their shelf life is going to be way longer. And they only take, because they're split, they only take about 10 to 15 minutes to cook in water, just like you'd cook rice on the stovetop.
Wow.
So there's
People
lots to be
need
learned.
educate themselves. I remember I had a women's group that I used to have coffee with once a month, and we went through. We call it to challenge ourselves. And so every month, somebody had to. It was somebody's month, and they brought some strange thing that they didn't know what to do with, that they see at the grocery store. And I said, okay, well, whoever's house we're at, we'll cut it. We'll look at it, we'll play with it. And it's amazing, because if it's one person spending one amount of money to bring one item, and then a whole bunch of us look at it and taste it and try it. And the only reason that appeals to me is I do that for my job. We look at stuff all the time. And I've learned over the years that I didn't even know it would be something I would like if I didn't try it.
Hands down. And when I did some food demos in the past for women, actually through a cancer center. So I was doing a nutrition talk and a food demo at the same time in a kitchen in the facility they had. And I got exposed even to, different fruits, vegetables, because it was a plan that was already set up that I was repeating. But it was just incredible how much you can learn, but you need some exposure to it. And I think it helps because, not sure, I think you might be aware of this, but do you know what the number one deciding factor is on whether you try or like something?
For a fruit or vegetable?
Anything that you eat.
I think it's how you look at it. It's with your eyes. Is it your eyes?
Someone's opinion.
It's taste. So I could tell you the best, most nutritious, gold star food you should eat. But guess what? The taste is what's going to win hands down every time.
Yeah.
So this is why there's some value in having, whether you do a little taste test, a challenge, whatever it is, it helps to get an opinion from somebody. Because I think when you don't know where to start, or it's a foreign food item, then you kind of want somebody who you trust food wise to give you a suggestion, but taste is going to be the factor. So at the end of the day, I could have you trying 5 things and I could show you the gold star that's nutrition wise. But if you prefer the taste over here, hands down, unless you're focusing specifically on a health illness that you have, taste is going to be what decides it for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. When I worked at one of the restaurants I worked at, we were a test kitchen, and the chef that was working there at the time, super creative guy, like beyond creative. And I used to be, because I was their demographic at the time, middle-aged female, blah, blah, blah. So he would want me to taste things. And I, at the time, this was early on in my foodie kind of start of the world. I'd like, well, what is it? And he goes, so he would blindfold me and he wouldn't tell me what it was. He wanted to know what I thought of the taste. And ever since then, I'm open to tasting anything and everything. Because
she still has to blindfold me though.
I just don't tell you what it is. That's what it is. Anyways, this has been really, really fun and great, Lisa.
Can I ask a question? You said something interesting in a conversation that we had off camera, and I'd like to bring it on camera because it stuck with me, because I'm about saving money, and this is what this quest is all about. You mentioned that there are some things that are taxable and non-taxable in the grocery store, and that tax is 13%. And if I'm saving 13% on something, maybe buying something fresh as opposed to canned, I'm in for that. So can you expand on that before we leave for this session?
Yes, good point, Tim. So I don't know if anybody knows for sure. I'm thinking if you're very cost savings and you need it to be financially tight, you're going to be aware. But your fresh fruits, your vegetables, meat, potatoes, those kind of items are non-taxable at the grocery store. If you're getting stuff I think it's drinks, candies, confectionery stuff, that kind of a snack food that's packaged, the majority of those are going to be taxed 13% in Ontario, right? And then on top of that, I think if it's over $4, the item, then it starts the tax. The other part is the partly prepared stuff will be taxed. I believe it's the 5%. So no GST. I'm not sure, but again, it comes back to the fact that the more processed a food item is, the more tax you're going to pay. So there's encouragement for us to save money and to eat healthier, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never, in my 55 years, knew that.
Really?
Nope.
I need to talk to you more about these things.
Oh.
Anyways, you know what I would say in all of this conversation is, just like it is with we're talking about cryptocurrency and stuff like that, I think the message in all of this is to be open to learning and trying new things. And if there's a will, there's a way. If you really, 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 like we do, want to make a difference in our life in 2021, and we want to find those cost savings so we can take that money and put it into our investment to try and change our financial landscape in 2021, then this is part of it. This is one of the areas where we spend a ton of money. Our food cost is huge. And you've given some fabulous tips and tricks, Lisa. And we'll put a link below for where you can find Lisa on Instagram, Facebook, and through her YouTube channel. So thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you so much as well. Bye.
See ya.